Okay, we're here with Cowboy T. We're going to have a conversation about politics, issues, all those fun things you should never talk about. I guess the only thing we're not going to talk about is religion.
We may touch on that too, who knows?
Oh, goody. So, tell me why you wanted to do this video.
Oh, it goes really to my advocacy about the Second Amendment. There's this notion that being a liberal, and which I am, and being pro-Second Amendment are mutually exclusive, and I'd like to explain why that's not true.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your background. How did you become a liberal?
Well, you might say I was born to a couple of liberals. I'm, of course, from San Francisco, California, which is where I get San Francisco liberal with a gun. Grew up there with all the attitudes you'd expect of a typical San Franciscan, which I still have. Basically, I grew up believing live and let live, and I, to this day, believe that that's a good way to live.
Tell me a little bit about San Francisco, what that did to form you the way you are.
Well, it's a city where basically anything goes as long as you don't hurt or damage anyone else. The attitude there is have fun. As long as you don't step on my rights to have the same kind of fun. Kind of like what Jefferson used to say back in the day. Your rights end at the tip of your nose, basically.
So, when you came to Washington, you didn't stop being a liberal?
Oh, no. No.
What brought you to Washington?
Well, a job, basically. I got offered a job out here, and I thought, let's see what the other half of the country's like.
And now that you're here, what do you think about what the other half of the country is like,
Well, they're a little bit on the socially conservative side, I suppose, based on how I grew up, but I must say the laws where I'm at right now, not in D.C. itself, of course, I live on the Virginia side, are much more pro-freedom than those in California.
Okay, so when you first moved here, when you first left San Francisco, what were your feelings, I use that word specifically, or position on the Second Amendment on guns?
When I first left San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean, you've lived in a couple of different places, of course, but
Sure.
When you first got here.
Okay. Well, when I first left San Francisco, well, I'll answer both questions really. When I first left San Francisco, I was in my teens, and I was raised to believe guns bad, guns bad. My dad for years tried to get me to get a concealed carry permit once I turned 18. I was like, come on, Dad, I don't need one of those. You know, the days where you had to carry a gun if you were a black guy, those days are gone now. That's what I thought. When I moved out here, I recognized the right to do so, but for me it was more of an academic, abstract thing. It's like, okay, those, if they want to be gun nuts, then they're free to be gun nuts as long as they don't try to hurt me.
Yeah, you said you were raised by two liberals. One of those is your dad.
Mm-hmm.
But he was telling you to get a concealed carry permit?
For decades. For 20 years he'd been trying to convince me to get a concealed carry permit.
But he's a liberal. How do you explain that?
He's also a black man who was on the road for years as a traveling musician and has had to defend himself on several occasions from those who don't believe black men have the right to exist.
You told a story to a couple of people. Why don't you tell me that story too?
Okay, sure. It's in a nutshell. He was walking from his hotel room to his car one day. He was on a job, and three racists with knives decided to approach him, and they said to him, and I will quote my dad, "Looks like we're going to cut ourselves up in nigger, boys." And they advanced on him.
Yeah.
Right up until he pulled his 38 Special snub nose, pointed at him and said, "I don't think so, fellas," and they changed their minds and turned around and went away. Funny how that happens, huh?
But that happened a long time ago. Did that change your mind once you'd heard that story?
It's not long ago to me. As far as I'm concerned, my dad would be dead, so it's not that long ago to me. But I thought, well, I'm an adult now. Those days are gone. It didn't change my mind right away.
All right, so you land in the South here, and you.
Yes.
Good to have you here. Spoken by an ex-New Yorker. Okay. You land here. You still have the same positions and opinions that you'd had before.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
How did you get from there to being the guy that wears the shirt that says... Right there, it says San Francisco liberal with a gun. What changed your mind?
Would you believe college?
Go
I
on.
know. I see the quizzical look on your face.
Do
there.
you now? That's good because nobody else can. Yes?
Yeah. Well, I took a college course in the American Revolution. It's one of those, I just felt like doing it. I've already been to school, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
This was basically more for fun. And we studied the American Revolution, and at the age that I did it, this would have been in, 2006? It wasn't far from my current age. I finally understood later on, like maybe a year and a half or two after that class, what the Founding Fathers really meant when they wrote the Bill of Rights, and particularly the Second Amendment. I write about this in my piece, The True Meaning of the Second Amendment, A Liberal's Epiphany.
Advertise your website, please.
It's www.sanfranciscoliberalwithagun.com.
Wait, like the shirt. Go on.
Funny that.
Yeah.
Basically, I understood what the Founding Fathers meant. I was in my kitchen, and I just stopped and went, oh. It was an epiphany. It really was. That's what they meant. And when I understood it, I was in a bit of a quandary. I had to either change my views or continue to be inconsistent.
Okay.
I chose to change my views because I don't like inconsistency in my own beliefs. And it was from that day on that Charlton Heston's famous words, "From my cold dead hands," made a heck of a lot more sense.
Okay, so the Second Amendment says,
I quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
but it said that all along. What did you suddenly discover that you hadn't known before?
The meaning of the word militia. That was the key. I'm a big grammar freak, as you know. You and I go back and forth on this, and it's a lot of fun. Well, we talk about militia today as some militia group off in the woods, playing army or whatever. Well, that's not what the Founding Fathers meant. What they really meant was what we now call the military, but the military is actually an improper use of the word. It's an adjective. Militia really means the army. And when I understood that, they meant the army. Oh, and then I understood it in the context of the American Revolution in that college class I had taken a year and a half to 2 years ago. I had read Thomas Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration of Independence, and then it all made sense.
All right. Explain it to me. So that the militia is the army.
Militia is the army. Back then, the context was the British Army and the injustices visited upon the colonists by the British Crown.
Mm-hmm.
The Army, the Navy, the Admiralty courts, all that stuff.
Right.
Well, how the heck can the colonists resist if they're not armed? And that's what the British went to go march on Concord about. And that was to take away the means of resistance. The powder, the cannonballs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Anytime you disarm the populace, that's how you enslave them, so said George Mason. Well, I'm paraphrasing him, of course. And I thought, that's why Switzerland is so dang safe. A lot of things all of a sudden clicked into place and made sense then.
Wait, why is Switzerland so safe?
Because everyone's got an automatic assault rifle. Everyone. They're issued them. If you're 20 years old, if you're a 20-year-old male, you're issued a full auto assault rifle. And I'm talking about the kind that goes,
Yeah.
I would guess that, and I'll put it in what to American ears are probably going to be somewhat extreme terms, a woman could probably walk from one end of the country to the other stark naked if she chose, and the worst that would happen to her would likely be she'd be asked out on a date. Why? Everyone's armed. No one's going to rape her.
That's an interesting example. You are from San Francisco, aren't you?
Yep. Hey, peace and love, man, through superior firepower.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, yeah. But it really points to freedom. If the people don't have the means to resist a tyrannical government, just like back in the day,
Right?
they cannot remain free. I started doing some reading afterward, and coupled with my studies before, I had noticed that just about every time that populations have been subjugated, their rights of the rights to the tools of self-defense have been taken from them. We did it in this country to black people, so the Klan could terrorize them. Back in the 1800s and the 1900s, the early to mid 1900s.
Yeah.
We did it to them. They were called the Black Codes. My dad told me all about them, and I started reading up on them myself, and wow.
And also in Germany, weren't maybe I'm making a big leap here, but people really didn't have arms in Germany before the time of Hitler, did they?
Sure they did.
They did?
Of course they did.
No.
And that's why Hitler first required registration of firearms, so you know where they were.
Oh.
Then, of course, the law-abiders, including the Jews, registered their firearms. Just like what happened in Britain in, 2001?
Mm-hmm. Sounds right.
Yeah. Well, that's how Hitler knew where to go to confiscate them.
Not good.
Yeah, every time I've ever seen or read about registration in a country, it inevitably has led to confiscation. Look in California, my home state.
Mm-hmm.
After the assault weapons ban, now all of a sudden, you got to register your assault weapon if it's pre 1989 in that state. Well, then all of a sudden they started outlawing things and said, okay, well now we know where they are. If you don't turn those in, we're going to come and arrest you, or sell them or whatever. They did the same thing with 50 BMG rifles.
All right, we're going to go back to the liberal part of the San Francisco Liberal.
Sure.
Unless you have something else you want to say about that.
Not really, no.
But I thought liberals are all in favor of big government and big government programs like registration. You're a liberal.
Yes.
How can you not be in favor of all those programs?
Because they're not liberals that are in favor of those programs. They're
What?
not. They are not for liberty. I know the talking heads call them liberals.
Mm-hmm.
There's what I call the Rush Limbaugh definition, and then there's the actual definition of a liberal.
Go on.
The actual definition of a liberal is someone who believes in something called liberalism. Of course, what does that mean? Well, I don't have Merriam-Webster's in front of me right now, but it basically refers to, in a nutshell, the belief in governance of the people by the consent of the governed. Now, where have you heard that before?
I think it was in some big document, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I think we call it the Declaration of
Oh, yeah,
Independence.
that.
Yeah.
That old thing.
That old thing. Written by, some old white guys that don't mean a darn thing anymore,
dead white
right?
guys, please. Right.
I'm sorry,
right.
dead white guys.
Yeah.
Darn, bad liberal. So,
Yeah.
that's an actual liberal. The Founding Fathers were our original liberals. Those who are not pro-Constitution, by definition, are not liberals. I don't care if they're Democrats, Republicans, Constitution Party, Libertarians, Greens, Cucamonga. If you're not pro-Constitution, by definition, you cannot be a liberal.
So, you're saying that you believe that you have rights to do whatever you want?
Of course, so long as I don't infringe on the rights of others to do the same thing.
But if you have a gun, that means you could do something to someone else that would limit their rights, like kill them or hurt them.
You darn tootin' it does. Of course, that's also true of my truck or your car. You could, again, I'll use an extreme example. I read about this happening, actually out in California. Someone took their car and did something really, really evil. They mowed over a bunch of school children waiting at the bus.
I heard about that.
Yeah. Well, do we outlaw cars? No.
Not anytime soon, no.
Not anytime soon, no. Well, a gun is a tool, like a car or a kitchen knife. You're familiar with the movie Psycho.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, do we outlaw kitchen knives?
Not unless I checked.
Right. Yet some women are still afraid of taking a shower without locking their bathroom doors to this day. And how long has it been since that movie came out? What, 50, 60 years? Something like that.
It's been a good long while.
It's been a good long while, but it still has an effect on people. Well, we don't outlaw kitchen knives. We don't outlaw aspirin. A child could go up and buy aspirin. You do bad things with aspirin to people too.
True.
Technically, you could do bad things with water. You could drown somebody with it. A gun is a tool like any other. It's all about what you choose to do with it. That personal responsibility thing.
Oh, that.
Oh, that.
All right. So here you are in the South.
Yeehaw.
Anything that's south of New York is the South, in my opinion. Just so you understand. And you're definitely not among liberals here, last I checked. How do you get treated by folks that you meet when they see your shirt or they hear about your website? What's their initial reaction to you?
Their initial reaction is, huh? Does that say what I think it does, boy? Usually this is at gun shows.
Okay.
I wear these shirts. I have several of these shirts of different colors. I'm equal opportunity with my liberalism. That I wear to the gun shows, and I do my advocacy that way. Then when I get to telling them what it is that I'm about, and then they see my my Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, strapped to my right hip, they're intrigued. They want to know more. Then we get to talking, and we find out that we're not really so different after all. Oh no, I may not share their religious beliefs or whatever, but fundamentally it's about believing in the right to protect oneself from a government gone wrong, or bad guys in the street.
So wait, so you mean they don't throw you out of the gun show when they find out you're a liberal?
Oh, I'm sure they've thought about it once or twice or more. But, hey, I got a gun. They don't dare try.
But wait, you didn't actually answer my question. So they actually have never forcibly ejected you from a gun show?
No, of course not. I'm a law-abider.
I see. All right. Just checking.
No, but it does
Full
raise
disclosure.
eyebrows, though. And that's the point. It is to raise eyebrows. It is to start a conversation. That's the point of these shirts. That's the point of my website.
Do you have that similar reaction from liberals? I guess you don't run into too many at the gun shows, do you?
You'd be surprised. I'm behind one of the local Second Amendment rights booths at the gun shows on a regular basis. That's my advocacy thing. In my case, it's the Virginia Citizens Defense League. Go VCDL!
Woohoo!
And yeah, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of liberals, much like me, much like my dad, much like I'm turning my mom into, who are pro-Second Amendment, would like to learn how to shoot, are interested in the sport of marksmanship, are interested in self-defense.
So they do show up. They do exist, even here in the South.
Even here in the good old South. That's right.
What about the kind of liberals that aren't at the gun shows? What kind of response do you get from them? If the subject comes up. Although knowing you, it probably does come up.
Of course it comes up. Actually, it came up not too long ago at George Mason University. That's one of the local universities around here. We went and did a protest against George Mason's policy of saying, if you're a student or faculty member, you cannot carry to defend yourself.
Which is the same policy that is in existence at Virginia Tech and was in existence a few years ago.
That's true. Did it stop the bad guy? Did it stop Sung Hui Cho?
Unfortunately, no.
No. Signs and regulations and rules or policies don't stop the bad folks. Unfortunately, as my dad discovered, you can only stop the bad folks with equal or greater force. With, as Masad Ayub put it, with a deep existential question about the bad guy's own personal existence. That's how you stop them. Signs don't cut it. Well, now, back to your question. I met a bunch of college kids that didn't necessarily agree with our position, that yes, you should have the right to carry, to own a gun, to carry on campus, should you choose to. That's the key. Should you choose. We're not saying, mandate gun ownership for everybody. No, that's nonsense. You know, ours is a pro-choice argument. You have the right to choose to do so. That's our belief. That's my belief.
I've heard that phrase before, pro-choice. Very interesting.
Hey, I'm a liberal.
So what kind of a response did you get from those kids on that campus?
One was surprised. Let's see. Oh, one older woman reacted in a rather hostile fashion.
Oh.
She turned her back in disgust. And I thought, well, okay, fine. You know, she has the right. Even though it was rude, she has the right. I went out and talked with the younger college kids who were interested in an actual conversation. I put the question to them. Now, that story about my dad, I asked him, now, what do you suppose would have happened if my dad had not been walking heavy that day? You know, would he have survived that encounter with those three racists? And if your answer is yes, then, you know, just in what condition do you think they would have left him? There was dead silence. You could have heard a pin drop. And so I asked, anyone? Dead silence. Finally, one brave girl, responded, okay, he wouldn't have survived. He would have been killed, yes. But, and I don't know what it was, that there must have been some kind of a look on my face. I don't know what it was. But she just kind of tapered off when she saw it.
Of course, you were thinking about the possibility of having lost your dad at a very young age, for you.
Yeah. You know, a father of one of the students who was killed at Virginia Tech was also there. I forget his name, but he had a picture of his daughter on his lapel. Beautiful girl, cut down murderously, tragically, taken from us far too soon, and I told him so. Actually, I used him as an example. That poor man. You know, he has to live for the rest of his life without his daughter, because no one could protect themselves. You know, I almost ended up just like him, but in the reverse. I almost lost my dad. I almost was walking around like him, in my case without a parent, in his case without a daughter.
Right.
The difference? My dad did have the means of self-defense. He did have his gun, and he did pull it out, and he did point it at him, and he did say, no, you won't kill me. No, you won't hurt me. And they got the point, and they left, and everyone walked away unharmed that day. So that's the context in which I went to that university to do our peaceful protest. My dad's alive because he had his gun.
So if you had an ability to engage the person who's watching this video, what would you most like them to take away from this conversation, if you will?
The following. Being a liberal is one of the most noble things one can be. It is what the Founding Fathers were. They risked their lives for our freedom to speak, to hold our opinions, our differing opinions. And to do so, you have to be able to stop a government gone wrong from squelching those opinions. Well, therefore, by definition, to be a liberal must mean you believe in freedom. There is no other option. This notion of you can't defend yourself with the proper tools. You know, all of the police need. The police they're the only ones with guns. The military is the only one who needs guns. No, that's not true. The Founding Fathers would have told you that. Matter of fact, they did tell you that in the Declaration of Independence. You ought to read it. Find Jefferson's original draft. It's also on my website if you want to see it. So, to be a truly consistent liberal, i.e. one who believes in live and let live as I do, one who believes that you have the right to exercise your rights however you see fit, provided you don't step on my right to do the same, and that includes our government officials. The only way to do that is to be armed. Ask any Swiss person. So, if you're conservative watching this, you might want to think again next time someone says I'm a liberal, especially if they're packing a .44 mag like I often do. If you're a liberal watching this, consider you're free to speak your piece because very brave people risked their lives with guns to make sure that you have that right. I finally figured that out. That is the consistent position.
I think you're right. Wherever you're finding this video, Cowboy T's site is
www.sanfranciscoliberalwithagun.com. You'll find videos there on how to make your own ammunition even. It's called reloading, or hand loading is the other word. This is the more general word for it.
Because if you're going to have the weapon, you need to be able to use it well and responsibly.
Yeah, it means practice with it.
Yeah.
And it also means prepare yourself in case there's another big ammo shortage of 2009.
Okay, thanks so much. I really enjoyed talking with you this evening, and there may be more of these conversations up there on the site.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. That's the whole idea. Thanks, Miss B.H.C.
Thanks, Cowboy T.
San Francisco Liberal with a gun.